Hi there, my name is Toby, and on this video we're going to be working on some elastic power exercises. We're going to start off with a beginner level, easy ones we can all do, but we're going to work up to some more advanced ones for really only advanced martial artists, people who have practiced this already, because they are quite dangerous. You've got to be careful, you can hurt yourself. So you're starting off here standing up nice and straight. The idea is to get a good alignment, a good body posture. This is about internal training. The internal training, internal martial arts is based on this, is your skeletal alignment. You've got to get your bones in just the right place. So now standing up nice and tall, I can bounce up and down. I'm bouncing from the ankles and the hips, not so much the knees. Now we're breaking it down nice and slow. I'm levering forward at the hips, so projecting the hips out, but I'm also on the ball of the foot. So I'm trying to create a bounce from the ankles and the hips, not so much the knees, and let that bounce rise up through the shoulders so I can feel it through my whole body. Nice and easy, nice and relaxed, but it's about the alignment, feeling the spine in this neutral position and bouncing through. And the same thing here, nice tall vertical spine, belly pulled in, sternum tilted slightly up and shifting side to side. Now I'm trying to put pressure into each hip, stretching out the hip joint, feeling a bounce in the hip joint, and then loosen up again, shake out the arms and legs. Always make sure there's no residual tension. Now, the internal training that we're doing here is all about the joints. This is about using the joints more than the muscles. And here I'm just bouncing now from one foot to the other. But I'm trying to cushion the bounce by landing into the ankle. So I'm landing on the ball of the foot, cushioning to the ankle and then cushioning to the hip. So you see, if I go more to the hip, I'm levering further forward. So it's about taking the pressure off the knee and absorbing it between the ankle and the hip joint itself. And now again, levering slightly forward. My back is still straight. I've got a slight backwards arch. I'm just levering at the hips only. And then again, loosen it all up, bounce it out. We're trying to feel an internal elastic recoil. What we're doing is trying to stretch the joints. So the ligaments are being stretched. They are elastic. And so they want to bounce back. They want to spring back. Now here, twisting side to side, nice and easy, nice tall spine. Again, belly pulled in, use the obliques, and feel the stretch all the way from the tippy toes, through the hip, through the spine, through the shoulders and down to the hands. And again, loosening up, bouncing, bouncing, bouncing. Nice and easy, nice and relaxed. This is all about feeling good. You've got to feel good in your body. There should never be any pain whatsoever. Even when we get to very stronger, higher levels as we work up to, even then you've got to be very mindful there's no pain, or at least it should feel like a good pain. Now this is the neutral stance. I'm levering slightly forward at the hips, shoulders up, arms up in front, so the arms and legs are bent halfway, and now I'm just bouncing. It's like a frog jumping. Knees are pointed out, the knees must bend over the toes, very important. No twist in the knee. So always remember that the big toe must align up with the knee, and they must bend in the same direction. And just like a frog here, I'm bouncing up and down, all like ballet, a ballet jump. But I'm trying to cushion between the ankles and cushion between the hips, and then bounce it up through the spine to the shoulders. Nice and easy, nice and relaxed. Remember, we're creating a spring. We're spring loading the body. Now, again, forward and backwards. So I'm just jumping forward and then bouncing back, trying to land into the front foot, but as I land, I've got a cushion. Now again, very, very careful, because you can hurt your knee here. You're suddenly putting pressure on your knee. So you've got to do this very, very carefully, and you've got to try to absorb the pressure in the ankle and the hip, not the knee. So very careful indeed. Very careful indeed. And you've got to remember that the knee bends over the toes. If you put a twist on the knee as you're doing this, you can hurt your knee. So again, this is all about alignment and precision, and just feeling a bounce through the body, through the joints. The Achilles tendon, the ankle, is very strong. It's the strongest tendon in your body, but we don't use it enough. Bouncing on the ball of the foot is using that Achilles tendon. It's supposed to be used. And the same with the hip joint. The hips are very, very strong. Strongest joint in the body. We've got to be able to use the hips to bounce around. And again, in between, twisting left and right. So when you twist here, nice tall spine. Loosen up, but get the alignment right. Now for the arms. Again, falling forward, but what I'm doing is cushioning the arms into a slow bend. I'm taking the wrist, the elbows, the shoulders, and even the spine. So the shoulders are going back, and I'm arching back, looking up, so I'm taking it right into the bend of the spine. Now we're getting advanced. Very, very careful. Don't do this. Do not do this unless you're feeling confident. This is for advanced martial artists only, because of course you can seriously hurt yourself. Now you see how I'm pushing it into the arch of the spine. Now I'm hunching the spine forward and pushing out. I'm creating a kinetic chain between the spine all the way down through the rib cage, the shoulders, the scapula, the elbows, the wrists, right to the fingers, and then I'm cushioning with the very same kinetic chain. Now the next one we're going to do is from the back. This is an expansion in the rib cage and expansion in the shoulders. Now this is the most advanced. So again, do not do this at all if you're not feeling confident. Again, very advanced only. What I'm doing is just falling back against the wall, collapsing. So very close like this is not too bad. But of course the main danger is going to hit your head. So the head has got to be away. The shoulders are lifted up and back. So you're catching on the shoulders, the rib cage and the scapula. And that is the cushion. The cushion is the expansion in the rib cage and the expansion of the shoulders. But again, I'm getting further and further away, so it's getting more and more dangerous, and it's a bigger and bigger impact. So I can only do that when I'm feeling confident that I've got the angle right, the alignment right, and I can feel that it is being cushioned. I'm cushioning it into my rib cage. But again, the further you get, the more dangerous this is, and of course you can seriously hurt yourself if you do this wrong. So again, just for interest, you can see that you can generate quite a lot of resilience if you get this internal alignment right. This is the resilience of the rib cage, and that comes from an expansion in the rib cage. The expansion gives a cushion, a bounce, and an expansion in the shoulders and the scapula as they lift it up and back. You're catching it in the stretch of the tendons. Now again, falling forward into a push-up. I'm only on the knees, so we start off nice and easy. Now the idea here is to go forward as far as possible. So your hands have got to go down towards your belly button. That means you're putting pressure on the whole shoulder joint and the scapula, as well as the spine. You've got to control the shoulder joint here. This is about the shoulders themselves. And the better you get, the further you can fall. But again, ever so careful. This is advanced now, very advanced, because you can hurt yourself. And I'm trying to absorb it by letting the shoulders project back, letting the spine arch back. I'm still keeping the belly pulled in. That's very, very important. So I'm moving to a neutral position of the spine. I'm not compromising it. Now here again, I'm holding the push-up position, but the neutral position. You see, slight backwards arch, slight backwards projection of the hips, opening the shoulders. The shoulders are slightly up and back a bit, up a bit as well. From that position, I'm bouncing, and I'm bouncing from the rib cage. I'm feeling the expansion in the spine, the rib cage, the shoulders, and bouncing from the core. It's not the arms, it's not the spine, it's everything together. Everything together. This is tricky to do. What I'm trying to do here is internal power training. I've got to unify all my structure together, the whole bone structure, and then create extensions through that whole structure, or cushion through that whole structure. Now we're doing slow motion push-ups, but again, low down towards the belly. So I'm reaching my chin forward. This creates a strong rotation in the shoulder blades and the scapula. So I'm allowing the shoulders to go up and forward. Now I'm pushing the shoulders, now I'm pushing the shoulders forward. Now the shoulders go back and up. So I've got a big rotation through the shoulder joint, activating the scapula and also the rib cage itself. Belly is pulled in. So although this is a push-up, you think it's for the pectorals and the triceps, it's actually I'm activating the shoulders and the scapula and the rib cage and trying to create an expansion and elasticity through that down to the arm to create a bounce. It's not an obvious push-up, it's a bounce through the joints. Now here, one arm at a time. You can see how I'm leaning into the shoulder, letting the shoulder project back and then extending the shoulder forward. I'm using the scapula and the rib cage. It's about the mobility of the joint itself. I'm using the rotation of the joint in the socket. I'm rotating it here, the elbow is in. So now I can see I've got a cushion into the elbow. The palm is up, elbow is going inwards, and I'm feeling a stretch through the elbow, stretch through the scapula. Now the elbow goes up. So I'm falling forwards, more like a one-arm push-up. It's a different angle, but both times I'm trying to create a spring and elasticity through the ligaments in my elbow and my shoulder and my rib cage and also the spine. And as I get good, I can fall in and catch. So I'm absorbing the impact as I fall into this cushion. It's a cushion, a sequential cushion through the joints, a kinetic chain. And again, two ways. Here, falling forward a bit like a push-up. Now here I'm expanding, twisting the elbow in. So here the elbow goes up, here the elbow goes down, inwards. So from an inwards elbow, you can see you can't bend it too much. It's a spring. And I'm opening up the rib cage. You can see the sternum is tilted up. I'm feeling a stretch through my spine. Now letting the elbow rather come up. Two different ways, elbow up or elbow down. Slightly different effect. You'll feel it through the scapula, through the shoulder, through the spine, through the elbow, the wrist and the fingers. It's a bounce, elastic power. This is how you can generate a lot of power internally. It's not so much muscles, it's the alignment of the bones and the elasticity of the ligaments. Now we do kicking. So I've got one foot up here into a front kick or a pushing kick. The knee is twisted outwards. Both knees are twisted slightly out. So you can see the toes are slightly out. Now I'm pushing my hips forward. I've got a dramatic stretch between the hips. The back foot is pushing into the ground through the hip joint, and that is pushing through the leg into the front foot into the wall. So I'm creating a very powerful push between the 2 feet. This is the secret of power in kicking. You've got to kick into the ground at the same time as kicking into the opponent. Then the force you're generating or absorbing comes from the ground itself. It's transmitted through the hips, through the legs. All I'm doing is dropping my body weight forward into the front hip, feeling a massive stretch in the hips. So the ligaments are stretching between the hips, and that stretch in the ligaments wants to bounce back, wants to recall. And that bounce I'm using into the kick. Now we've got a side kick. So here this is like a horse riding stance, but 1 foot on the ground, 1 foot in the air. And again, I'm sinking my hips forward into the front leg to create pressure, but I'm kicking my back leg into the ground, and my front leg I'm kicking it into the wall. It's side on here, side on, so it's going towards the heel, but you can see how I'm creating a pulse between the 2 legs. It's between the hip joint itself. I've got to feel this stretch in the hips, opening of the hips, but a correct alignment of the hips. You can see here a slight backward projection of the hips, like I'm sitting on a chair, but the knees are also open in front, so the hips are stretched in front also. Now the final one here is a turning kick. I'm actually twisting into the wall. So I'm creating a twist through the spine at the same time as pushing one leg into the ground and then pushing the other leg in. So I'm moving towards the ball of the foot, twisting, kicking a turning kick into the wall. So I'm not projecting out the kick, but what I'm trying to do is feel the internal power generating between the legs and between the twist in the spine. So I'm feeling the twist. It's synchronizing. I've got to synchronize the flow of movement. Again, it's a wave, a ripple, a whip that goes through the body. Now pushing the whole body together. So I've got to sink in, back hip is driving forward, sinking to the front foot, belly pulled in, shoulders up and back. But what I'm doing is creating a spring and jumping in the air. I've got to synchronize it with the push. So I do a sudden push into the wall. It comes from the back foot, flows through the hands. But the moment it reaches the hands, I lift up in the air so that I can throw my body weight back. I'm literally pushing my body weight into the wall, but taking the feet off for a second so I've got something to push. I'm throwing myself back. But don't cheat. You mustn't cheat. This has got to come from the spring in the tendons, the spring in the structure. And the same business here, one hand at a time with the punch. So I'm holding knuckles onto the wall, aligning the whole structure. Again, back foot drives into the floor, twisting through the hip, through the spine, but a backwards arch in the spine. Shoulder is up and back. Now I'm creating a pulse through the body. And again, when the pulse reaches the fist, I lift up in the air just so I've got something to push. So I throw back, I fly back. And if you look very carefully, you can see it's not work. It's like a bounce. I'm winding up a spring by driving into the wall and then releasing the spring as I jump up so I fly back. Again, these are all advanced. Be careful because you can hurt yourself. You hurt your knuckles. It's not so much an impact, it's a push. But this is how you can generate an impact with this elastic power. In time, this will become an actual punch. You drive it into a punch through this bounce. But for now, I'm just practicing the bounce, feeling the alignment, feeling when I push into the wall, I'm compacting, and then I can pulse out, release the compaction as I jump in the air. Now the neutral stance again, falling forward. So hips are open, got a backwards arch. Again, it looks very primitive. It's like a monkey stance. The hips are projected back. You've got to have this backwards projection of the hips because this gives the cushion. I've actually got to lever in the hips. They're the ones that give the power to the bounce. If I've tucked the pelvis under, I don't have this elasticity in the hip joint itself. Again, this is very advanced. You can hurt yourself, and again, you throw your face into the wall. But you can see what I was doing there, bouncing into the wall, catching and pushing back. Now we're doing swinging punch, hook punches into the wall. Again, synchronizing the whole movement, a twisting movement into the arm. But now just do the end bit, pushing in with the fist. So I'm trying to feel the synchronized movement, the stretch through the body, the twist through the body, and it will drive into a push into the wall. And I'm using that push, that compacted push like a spring to bounce it back out again. This is elastic power. I'm trying to create an elastic body, spring-loaded body. So you'll always have some power ready if you're moving about, because every movement you go to, you're creating an elasticity ready to bounce into the next movement. But you can see how simple it is. There's really only a straight one, jumping up and down, and a twisting one, like this. A twisting one could be the legs or the arms, and then between this up and down and twisting left and right, you can generate all different types of power, all different types of elastic power in the body, all different angles. And you can see how this will become a foundation for internal martial arts. Now finally, I'm just doing a little bit of freestyle stretching, feeling the energy in the body, stretching up, moving about. But what I'm doing is really trying to feel an elasticity in the joints. I'm opening up the structure, stretching the ligaments and breathing through that. It's about trying to get the full range of motion, really maximize the range of motion. Here it's the hips. I'm really stretching into each hip. Now hips stretch with a twist. So I'm twisting my whole structure into a powerful position. Now opening up, one arm down. Now we're moving towards martial arts type stances. This is getting to be actually practical for martial arts. But what I'm concentrating on is the movement of the ligaments, the opening of the joints, the twist in the actual ligaments. It feels like an elastic band, elastic power. And again, at the end, loosen it all up, shake it all out, and you should feel even a blood rush. You'll generate a lot of movement of blood as you practice this, and a lot of energy would build up in your body. You should be able to feel this. So again, practice this carefully, slowly, and at your own pace. I hope this made sense and you enjoyed this little workout, and I look forward to seeing you again in any of these other videos here.